us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. William, could you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, before we get going here, I'd like to welcome some new members, and I guess we should say some older members that's come back to be new members. Mr. Henry Menaboo, he's down here on the right. Mr. Robert Sullivan over here. And then Mr. John, help me out here, Hoppengarden, right here. We'd like to thank y'all for joining the board here to make it easier to make a little queue for us. So this is going to be the Planning and Zoning Board and Local Planning Agency. Is an advisory board which makes recommendations to the county commissioners who will make the final decisions on these items. Item H14 will be heard by the county commission tomorrow, January 11th. The rest of the items will be heard by the commission on February 3rd. When a motion ends in any kind of split vote, a roll call vote may be taken to ensure accuracy. As a reminder, each member who makes a motion or a second needs to turn their microphone on so that your voice is on the record. At this time, if any board member has had any ex parte communication regarding any application, please disclose so now. All right, seeing that, I need a motion for approval of P&Z minutes from November 15th, 2021.
So moved.
A motion by William.
A second.
A second by Pete. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair, before we get started, I just wanted to bring your all's attention to, this is our first meeting where we'll have items that typically went to LPA and P&Z together. The way that we recognize those different applications is by italicizing the wording of it. So for this exercise, items number 5, 13, 14, and 15 are all LPA items. And I'm going to confuse you guys a little bit. So item H5 will be read into the record with item 6, since there are companion applications. You'll have to take a separate vote by them, one as a LPA and one as a P&Z member.
All right, we're just going to follow it right down the list.
Yeah, so I have a request to read item H13 into the record by the applicant. And this is a little bit different. If you want to know the reason why, I can give that to you. But there's been a request made to hear item 13 first.
Okay. We can go with that.
Okay, so I'll read item H13. This is Sunil Rajan, Sudhir Rajan, and Suresh Rajan request a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment 21S.09, change the future land use designation from NC, neighborhood commercial, to CC, which is community commercial, tax account number 2412234, located in District 2. Members of the board, you'll have to allow that, in this case, typically in the past, before this is heard by you guys, it is heard through Myra, since this property is within Myra. Unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict in the holidays, this item has not been to the Myra board. So it's not required to be heard by the Myra and for the recommendation, so that's why I bring it to you guys if you want to hear the application or not and make a recommendation without Myra, or you can table it so it can be heard by Myra. So I will defer to you guys.
Anyone on the board have any questions for that, or? Yes, ma'am.
Will Myra be meeting before the county commission meeting? In other words, can we take this vote to Myra, and Myra can make a recommendation as well before it goes to BOCC?
Well, I believe, and don't quote me, that by the end of the month, Myra will be able to hear it. But typically in the past, before this advisory board made a recommendation, they wanted to know what Myra had to say first.
Mr. Chair, thinking that that's how it's been for some time, I think we should respect Myra and wait until they meet. So I motion to table the item, but that's just my personal preference.
Okay, a motion to table item H13 by Ben.
I'll second that motion.
Before you guys do that, let me give you the date, so it's date certain, so we won't have to advertise for this. Where's the February? So I would, in your recommendation, I would use the date February 14th.
Okay, so I amend the motion to table item H13, or recommend tabling to February 14th after Myra's recommendation is submitted.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
can we have just one, I've got one question, is, Kim,
Kim?
are you satisfied with the potential of this decision? I know how your attorneys are, I just didn't know.
Yeah, and I didn't mean for the whole matter to be heard. I just want to know if you're going to table, I would know right away. My client is supposed to be here. I think he's been, Mr. Rahal was supposed to be here, Nick Rahal. And we've already been to FDOT for pre-app. We've already got drainage approval through FDOT. I mean, they're trying to move the Dunkin' Donuts. Sorry, Kim Rosenka, Lacey Lyons Rosenka. So we're not happy about the tabling. We understand that Myra should have the opportunity, but that was due to no fault of the applicant. I would ask that you go forward, then go back to Myra. If they have a problem, then we could go back to P&Z. But I don't want to wait a whole nother month, if at all possible. So no, I appreciate the fact that the way it's always been. And if Myra did have a problem and recommend a denial, then I'd be more than willing to come back to you all. I don't know what you all will do here, but yeah, it's you know, they've already got the traffic study. They're ready to apply for site plan like now. So
Are you telling us that FDOT's going to allow that driveway?
our engineer Rick Kern, who couldn't be here for medical reasons, says he
Okay.
believes so. He believes so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mr. Rahal has just appeared. They moved us to the front because they may table us, so that's why. So I would ask that you reconsider and not table, but I understand if you do. Only now because you only have one meeting a month, so we're pushed back a whole nother month.
Well, we do have a motion by Mr. Ben and a second by Pete, so we're going to have to take a vote on it.
Can we start discussion, Mr. Chair? Yeah, so I know we have to take a vote on that, but I would prefer hearing it today, sending it to Myra, and then if there's any issues after Myra hears it, because then they can hear what our concerns are too. And then, like the applicant said, it can either come back here or just go forward right to the BOCC on. So that would be my recommendation.
Well, go ahead.
I guess my question would be, if we do that, and we setting precedent, so how does staff feel about that?
It's really at the pleasure of at this board, what you want to do. It's not a code requirement that your recommendation is based on what Myra says.
Okay.
Or wants.
Perfect then. It's on the record.
Well, just so the board members, we're all together here, we do have a motion to table it and a second. So we're going to need to vote on that, and if we don't want to table it, vote accordingly.
Or would you like to withdraw your motion? That's the question.
No, because the only problem I have with that is that if we do take all of the time to go through it today, and then Myra still does not agree with it, then I prefer to table it personally. But if somebody has something else they'd like to say, then of course we're all ears.
I'd like to table it as well. Mr. Rosenka, I know you came out here, same with the applicant here, but we pushed you to the front of the agenda. Sorry to waste your time, but at least it wasn't an hour, it was 5 minutes. But either way, we got to vote on it.
Okay, we've got a motion by Ben to table item H13, a second by Pete. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Yes.
Okay, we have two opposed. That's Mr. Menaboo and Mr. John. So that motion passed to table it. Do you want us to go through who said yea and nay?
Mr. Minaboo, Mr. Hoppengarden.
Correct.
you for taking it first.
Okay, item H1.
H1, Scott Minnick requests a change of zoning classification from AU to RR1. This is 21Z00025, District 1.
Is the applicant here? Okay, seeing that, I bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to table this item to February 15th was the date? For the next-
14th.
February 14th, since the applicant is not here.
I'll second.
Mr. Chairman, isn't this the second time that we've tabled this? And both times were because the applicant wasn't here?
That is correct. This is the second time that you be tabled this item.
It seems to me that the applicant doesn't really have an interest in carrying forward what he proposed.
Can I ask a question? Does the applicant need to be here for us to go through the application?
It really behooves him to do that, because then there's some due process issues that if you make a recommendation and he's not there to defend it, so I'll let Alex.
Well, how many times do we table?
Right, that's,
There is no set limit as far as how much that you table in. So, I mean, that's at the pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chair, if I may, is there anybody in the audience for this item H1? Going AU to RR1 in District 1? I have no objection to tabling it one more time and deny if anything else.
You made the motion.
Yeah.
Got a motion by Pete to table H1 and a second by William. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Is there
Ro-
a date?
Ron opposed. All right, item H2.
H2, KJ Group FL LLC requests a CUP for alcoholic beverages with full liquor for on-premise consumption in conjunction with a private club in a BU1 zoning classification. This is District 1.
Is the applicant here? Sir, if you could come up to the podium there and state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chair, before we have the applicant come up, I just wanted, for the record, I want to make sure that this is for full liquor. There was in the staff comments, there was a reference that this is for beer and wine. However, it was advertised for full liquor, and so that's what you should be making your recommendation on for a CUP for full liquor.
Okay. Yes, sir, please come on up. State your name and address for the record.
Lawrence Lonaville.
All right, and a little bit about what you're wanting to do there, Mr. Lawrence.
We're establishing an AMVETS Post 2415 for Veterans Community and Youth Center. It's a nonprofit organization. What we do is we make money to help kids, help the high school, the community, and veterans, get them off the streets, save lives.
All right. Anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? All right, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. We got any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve this item.
I'll second.
All right, a motion by Pete, a second by William. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Item H3, Robert Griffith requests a change of zoning classification from RRMH1 to TR1, tax count 210-2136, District 1.
Is the applicant here? Okay, and seeing that, I bring it back to the board.
So this one was advertised too late. It was on the wrong property until 14 days before, so it should be tabled until the February 14th meeting, so it has time to be properly advertised.
Got a motion by William to table item H3, a second by Liz. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Item H4.
H4, Stephen H. Long requests a change of zoning classification from GU to AU. This is 21Z00038, tax count 2538150, District 1.
Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. All right, sir, if you could come up here and state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Stephen H. Long, 827 St. Michelle Drive, Rockledge, Florida.
And a little bit about what you're wanting to do, Mr. Stephen.
I just want to be able to bring my family out on my property on the weekends and use it kind of like everybody else in my neighborhood's doing.
Is there anyone in the audience for or against this item? All right, seeing that, I bring it back to the board for any questions.
Mr. Chair, I don't see any negative concurrency data. I did have a question, though. Did you want to build a house or anything on this piece of property?
Not at this time.
Okay.
And a
No further
question for
questions?
you. Are you going to have horses on the property?
It's possible, yes.
Okay.
Ma'am, if you want to speak for or against it, I'll give you a chance to come up here, but this is just for zoning. Any other questions from the board? If you give me 1 second. Ma'am, if you'd like to come up and speak for or against this item, you're welcome to. He just asked for a request of zoning change from GU to AU.
Yes, sir. And
So-
I was just asking why he wanted, what's the difference between the GU and the AU?
Well, we can get you the exact here. Staff, if you could give us a little help.
So AU would allow for things like the raising and grazing of animals,
Right.
so things like horses, which GU would allow for potentially if it was 5 acres or more. However, this is less than 5 acres, so just agricultural pursuits is my understanding of why
Okay,
he would
very good. Thank
like to
you.
have AU.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Sir, you can come back there to the podium. Seeing that, will anyone else like to speak for or against this item? I'll bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve this, or make recommendation to county that we approve this.
Okay. All right, a motion by Ron to approve, a second by John. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
All right, sir.
H5 and H6 are companion applications, so I'm going to read them both in, but they will require a separate vote. H5, Bruce Fernandez requests a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use designation from Res 1 to 2.5 to Res 1. This is in District 1. H6, Bruce Fernandez requests a change of zoning classification from RRMH-2.5 to RRMH-1, and also District 1.
Is the applicant here? Mr. Bruce, if you could come up. You know the routine already. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Bruce Fernandez, 4598 Addy Avenue in Memphis, Florida. And the issue is we have
If you could get closer to that microphone, please, sir.
we have a 30-year-old mobile home on 3.5 acres. That's at the last house on the end of Orentia Road. And my son takes care of foster children, particularly kids that have medical problems, some weird stuff. But in any event, they've outgrown the house that they're in. You guys have put 50 or 60 different kids through there over the last few years. And my son is going to pay to build a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house on the back part of that property. Well, in order to house these kids. In order to be able to do that, it turns out, and Kyle knows more about the situation, basically, we need permission from you guys. It's taken a year and a half and $5,000 to get to this point.
For the rezoning. Is there anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Sir, if you could just take a seat real quick and we'll get right back to you. And if you could also state your name and address for the record, please, sir?
Joe Gutierrez, I'm the owner of the house that he claims that I'm in his property, and that's not true.
You're the owner of the property
Yeah,
that he's wanting to rezone?
yeah, the one he was to rezone. He was saying that,
Yeah, I know.
Hold on one second. We only can have one person talk here at a time. So, staff, help me here. Item H5. This is a rezoning from 125 to Res 1, correct? And your name, sir?
Joe Gutierrez.
And you say you own the property?
No. We own the property next to him.
Next to him.
Okay, okay.
And he is claiming that we are 500 feet over his property, and that's not true.
And from here, we oppose to whatever change, whatever the reason for the change, and we need to know what is the motivation and the reason for the change.
Okay,
Oh, that's
we're
all.
going to get to that.
Okay.
Okay.
We're going to get to
All
that.
right, all right.
All right.
Okay.
So, okay.
Mr. Bruce, could you come back up to the podium? They are wanting to know the reasoning of the zoning change. Why are you wanting to go to Res 1?
Purely so that we can build the additional house. They used to talk about putting up a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house. I have pictures of the property that would explain the situation better. But there's a huge field out in the back on the very end of Springfield, and he's going to build a house there.
Okay, and how many acres do you have there?
3.5. It's part of the original 11 acres that we owned.
But they're making a claim that you told them that they're 500 feet over into your property.
500 feet?
That's what,
No.
that's what they just
There-
said.
We originally owned the whole 11 acres, and what he has was my mother's house.
Okay.
Now, when the survey came out, as it turns out, that my brother just went ahead and put barbed wire all over the place because he had horses running around loose. And there's the one fence, which is mostly down at this point, and it is, I think, 5 or 6 feet onto his property, which is irrelevant. I mean, in fact, 90% of that fence is laying in the grass.
I guess that's their confusion. That's
Yeah.
what they're just wanting to know, exactly why you're rezoning.
Oh,
Does it affect
only to
them?
build the additional house. But actually, theirs should be rezoned as well. I think we gave them 2 acres, so they could probably put a second house on there. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
If we decide, if the board decides to continue and you build this house in the back, how are you going to access the house in the back of your property? Because I see the road ends right at the beginning of the first house you have there in the front of your property.
where the pavement ends,
Okay.
the road itself, that's why I said I have pictures, and Colin and I have been going around this for a while. The road itself actually goes out to the end. But apparently when Carlos and the county worked this out, the gravel road that was there, and they paved it, they only paved it up to that point. And that was why we had to have another survey done. And really, here's the issue. We can either break this up as 2 even rectangles, or we have to go through this convoluted mess of trying to create legal rights of way to meet the verbiage of what's in the rules now. That road is going to finish being paved out. We know that at some point in time, that farmland, all of that's going to be developed, probably sooner than later, and that road will be paved out to the end. And what looks like a dirt road right now, we own, that's part of the property. So there's actually only a small section that would not be paved between where the new lot would end and the pavement.
Okay, so if you're to build a house on the back of your property, you're telling me construction crew, yourself, and others can reach the back of your property?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, no further questions for me, sir.
If I can jump in for a second, Mr. Fernandez will have to meet our code, 62102, which is the access, before he can get another building permit. So basically, in a nutshell, he's going to have to split that property with the appropriate access on the county-maintained portion of the road. If he does not have that, then he will not be able to get a building permit. There are, it's up to him how he designs that flag stem in order to meet the code.
But that's part of the thing, and that's what we've been trying to work out, is to, I mean, really, why does it even need a flag stem? Why can we not just break it out as 2 rectangles?
That's going to be their call there as far as staff, but this is just for the zoning issue.
All right.
Anyone else in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? All right, seeing that, I'll bring it back to the board for questions or any concerns.
Mr. Chair, I don't see any concerns, and I recommend approval.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Ben, a second by Pete. All those, now this is for item H5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item H5 passed unanimously. And we've got the same on 6.
6 is for the zoning.
Can we move with a motion, or do we need to?
Need to make a motion.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I motion to approve H7 as well, or H6 as well.
Second.
Got a motion by Ben on item H6, a second by Mr. William. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
H7, Cobb 192 LLC requests a change of zoning classification from BU1 to BU2, and that's District 5.
Evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Bruce Moy representing the applicant. It's really great to see a full dais up there. It's been a while. See, they had to dig pretty deep to get some people up there, but it's good to see you again, Henry. So, yeah, what we're proposing today is to get a rezoning on a piece of property that fronts US 192. It's commercial in nature. It's a commercial corridor. They have 2 different zonings on the property. They have B1 in the front and BU2 in the back. And what we'd like to do is make it all BU2. There's plenty of BU2 in the area. We think it's very compatible and consistent. And so that would allow us to do a storage facility on the property. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Bruce?
So Bruce, from what I understand in BU1, you cannot do outside storage, but BU2, you can do outside storage.
We're not proposing outside storage. This will be actually indoor. Well, BU1 is storage is a conditional, permitted with conditions.
Okay.
As opposed to BU2 is a permitted use.
So this would be just a self-storage
Yeah,
facility?
it'll be a multi-story indoor storage facility.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Come on back up, Mr. Moyer. You're looking good so far.
So far, so good, yeah. So any more questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
That's pretty cut and dry there.
It is pretty cut and dry.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
I was just going to ask a question.
Okay.
Can you hear me? No.
Yeah.
Okay. You said a multi-story building. How tall is this building to be?
3 stories.
3 stories?
Yes.
Walk up or elevators?
Yeah, it'd be very similar to the one that's on Vieira Boulevard. If you've seen the cube storage, I believe it has an elevator. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe it has to for ADA, because it's a commercial facility.
Mr. Chair, if there's no further questions, I make a motion to recommend this to the County Commissioners, Cobb 192 LLC, the changes zoning classification from BU1 to BU2.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Pete, a second by Mr. William. Item H7, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. All right, item H8. afternoon. Item H8, David C. and Cynthia R. Ramage, co-trustees, request to change the zoning classification from AU, which is agricultural residential, to RR1, which is rural residential. The two tax account numbers are 2101027 and 3020477, both in District 1. Is the applicant here?
Hello.
Hey, how are you? Sir, if you could state your name and address for the record.
This is David Ramage, 1830 Tomato Farm Road, Mills.
All right, and just a little bit about what you're wanting to do here.
Well, we have 4.5 acres zone AU, I'm thinking. So we just want to split it in half so my son can build a house on the front of it.
On the front or the back of it?
On the front up on Turpentine.
Okay.
You know, it's like 2.25 acres, and I think you got to have 2.5 acres, and there's 1 acre lots all around us, so.
All right. Anyone on the board have any questions for Mr. Ramage?
Quickly, you already have a home on the one lot, and you're going to, no. So
Yes,
there's,
yes.
yeah, so then
Yeah.
you're just going to build another home.
We have a
Correct.
house that we ran out on part of, it was 4 acres total,
Right.
but there's 2.5 left or something. We want to split it and give him an acre to build his house. So we don't own a home on that. We own the house, but it's a rental.
So there's one house on the 4.25 acres, and you're going to split it and put another home?
Next
on
to
the-
it.
Correct.
Next to it?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Have we done that up there, Robert? Have we minimized on the splits? If, when we split now, are we doing less than 2.5 up there? Turpentine and all that? Do you know of any situation?
Not to my knowledge.
There's 1 acre lots all up and down through there.
If I may just interject for a second, yes, Henry, we did, was it last month, the board approved the Heather Callaghan Trust, which is just on Hammock Trail.
East side of Turpentine.
Yeah, east side of Turpentine Road, which is a 6,500 square foot lot, so pretty substantially a much smaller lot than 1 acre.
Has that been well received up there?
There, during the public hearings, there was quite a few oppositions. Some of it was lot size, but mostly it was environmental concerns of that property, considering that there is quite a few wetlands on the property and stormwater issues.
That was down
Up
to.
there, it's always been an issue every time you reduce the sizes of these lots, and usually the room will fill up. So, anyway.
I just, real quick, Mr. Chairman, so the future land use for this property is Res 4, so would, at some point, could they come back and ask for 2 additional units? Or if we bind them to these 2 units?
There's 2 different land uses identified, residential 1 and a residential 4. So the residential 4 would allow 4 units per acre or quarter-acre size lots. The residential 1 is 1 unit per acre or 1 acre lot size.
So he's only planning to build 1 home, but what could he put on this property if we subdivide it with the existing future
Well,
land use?
Under the future land use, his request for RR1 is a 1 acre minimum size lot.
Okay.
So if we approve this, it actually would reduce the potential amount of structures he could put up.
Unless he changed the zone, unless he changes the zoning.
Which then it would still comply with the future land use?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, he'd have to come back, so I have no problem.
It would basically be 1 acre lots, which is all around it. What everybody's excited is about the no setback thing, where they're gonna put 200 houses in, by 46 in Turpentine and the Hammock Road.
Well, I have no problem with your application. It's just the future use of the land when you pass it off or sell it, to make sure that it doesn't have that opportunity that you just described, so.
Right,
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
I'm good with the
No,
application.
we don't want that either.
right.
Inside all that crowded in there too.
No, that's not happening.
I got one more
just want
move
him out of
I've
the
got to
house.
make to be sure we're all good here. Does anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Well, that's good news. I'll bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
A motion by Liz, a second by Mr. William. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thanks, sir.
Your son's lucky.
Y'all have a good night.
Yeah.
Okay, item H9.
That is Howard L. Gassman requests a change of zoning classification from GU, which is general use, to AU, which is agricultural use. Tax account number is 240-2174 and District 1.
And you must be the applicant.
Well, I'm not Howard, but I have
What?
authorization to act. I'm daughter-in-law.
Yeah, if you could just get there to the microphone and
Okay.
state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Mary Gassman, and my address is 4660 Tangerine Street, Cocoa.
All right, and what are you looking to do, just a
Getting all
little?
nervous. We're planning on buying the property over there, and we just want to build a building for all of our yard equipment. We have, okay, I'm sorry. We have tractors and side-by-sides, and I have a garden, and I want some chickens, and
And you can't do that with GU, huh?
no, it's only like half of the house size, and that is not big enough. I can show you a picture of our shed now, which is, it's completely full. Rototillers, gardening equipment,
All right. Is there anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I got one for the staff. Is that, that's a non-buildable lot, isn't it?
Let me take a look.
Okay.
Well, we already have a house on it.
Okay, you got
Well,
it.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it's my father-in-law's house, and he's planning on selling to us. But he does not have a building to put all of our yard stuff in. So we can't move.
Because that cutoff line was pretty close to there, wasn't it?
The note in the file says that for lot size, the GU subdivided in Survey Book 2, page 60, which was a timeline to grandfather in 1 acre GU zoning lots.
Okay. That come under the grandfather?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an existing house on the property already.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for staff. In looking at the compatible uses in the area, it looks like a lot of residential. Are these all AU as well? Are these all full-fledged farms out there, or? I tried to find.
They're not farms, they're just residential lots. A lot
Yeah,
of
so
it is
it's
GU
R1.
just because they haven't ever changed their zoning.
Right.
GU is an unapproved lands and low-density residential, so a lot of times people just get their house and that's all they want. But,
Right.
if they want additional agricultural uses, then we would make them come in and rezone.
So my concern with the full-blown AU is that while she says it's only to store equipment, maybe have a larger home, which is fine, is the other uses that AU allow, which is high-end commercial, industrial, hog farms. And so there is a zoning category called AU Light, or AUL, I don't know what the correct term is, which prohibits those high-end commercial industrial uses. So it's more compatible with your RR1, AU Light in the area. Horses,
Okay,
Chickens.
no, maybe, don't want horses, maybe some chickens, but no, it's never gonna be commercialized, no. For my family, maybe my neighbors, some fruits and vegetables, some eggs, so. We sold eggs before, we live right around the corner.
And so that fits into the ag light
'Cause we are
category.
agriculture.
If that's what you're planning on doing, would that be a consideration for you to go from the full-blown ag to the ag light, which is more compatible with the rest of the surrounding area?
Because that means I could use it.
Same way you can use ag, you just can't do
If-
the
if-
high-end commercial,
If I
industrial.
can just do, so the difference in, for the new board members, the difference between AU and AUL, in a nutshell, is you cannot sell the product on that property. That means that if you sell your tomatoes, sell your corn or whatever, you would have to find a commercial site to sell that from. So that's the difference between the AUL and the AU.
Well, and you could also not do commercial on the property, hog farms or industrial type of uses that a farm could have. Is that correct?
The AU zoning permits you to do any agricultural activity, packing, processing. Hog farms is a separate conditional use permit, and you would need 10 acres of land.
But does the ag light allow you to do those?
You can do
uses?
the agriculture pursuits. The problem is you can't do the commercial aspect of it. So you would have to you could grow it, but you'd have to take it somewhere else to sell it.
Okay.
The RR1 zoning also allows horticultural activities and the keeping of horses.
Right.
But then again, if you wanted to sell it, you've got to take it somewhere else to sell it.
Right.
Ma'am, do you plan on selling eggs on the regular?
Possibly, yes, because we live around the corner, our property is agriculture, and people found out we had them chickens, and everybody wants those eggs. I don't know if I will get that many, because that was kind of an overload before, we had 50. But anyway,
Okay.
could possibly, yes.
I don't see a problem with the AU since that's acre restrictions. So,
There are several properties surrounding the subject property that are zoned AU. So I think it's compatible, and it's something that I would support.
Any other questions for the applicant? Anybody have a motion?
so move.
Second.
Got a motion by William on item H9, a second by Ben in favor. All those say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passed unanimously.
Yay, thank you.
All right.
Good luck with your eggs.
I won't get rich off it.
All right, and board, I believe this is where we had some attachments. Is that correct, Jennifer, for this item, H10?
Yes.
Here's some public comment.
Item H10, please, sir.
Carter and Jessica Hayes request a change of zoning classification from AU, which is agricultural use, to RU24, which is low-density multifamily zoning, on tax account numbers 231-8403 and 231-8404.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I can update you all on the North Merritt Island meeting that occurred last week. So this item was heard in front of the North Merritt Island Dependent Special District. They recommended SR, which is a suburban residential zoning classification with a BDP. I can tell you that the BDP is not necessary because the comp plan and the zoning regulations already provides for consistency. So that was their recommendation moving forward.
Okay. Sir, could you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name's Carter Hayes, and the address is 4645 North Courtney Parkway.
And a little bit about what you're wanting to do?
Thank you. My name's Carter Hayes. I'm here with my wife, Jessica. We're the owners of the property. I'm also a state certified general contractor, so when it comes time to build, I'm going to build on myself. The reason we're here today is to get the zoning changed from AU to RU24. Now, which the property is zoned AU. It's always been zoned AU. It's never been anything different. In fact, it's been zoned AU so long, it no longer meets the minimum requirements under that designation. So for instance, as an example, if I were to try to sell one of my lots, what would I advertise it as? AU? I mean, that doesn't seem fair since they can't use it for that. So, also under the Res 4, future land use is RU24, which is what I'm looking at. That'll allow me to build these townhouses. That's under the future land use, the RU24. So when we look at, if we ask the question, is what I'm trying to do consistent with the comprehensive plan, the answer is yes, it's consistent. I would like to build some townhouses or duplexes. I'm going to build them myself and maintain ownership of them and rent them out. These duplexes will be beautiful. Going to be the preliminary designs of my wife, who has a lot of experience with developers, often in this phase with the design, the unit layouts. They're going to be very attractive buildings. We're looking at around 1,800 square foot, nice kitchen, an easy flow, 2-bedroom, 1-story. Our target demographics will be these young engineers just out of college, working out at the Space Center, it's just down the street, and also my kids, my kids, my sister's kids, our friends' kids, who are young adults who need a nice, safe place to live. We all know the property values here in Merritt Island, in the local area, they've gone up. So we don't want them to have to leave the area to find a nice place to live. I have this staff comments here. I think you guys all have that.
Yeah,
so
we
a
have
couple of times
copies
I'm
of
just
that.
going to make reference to this. On page 3, the author or the staff says a multifamily use may be considered a transitional from North Courtney to the single-family residentials to the west. So on North Courtney, we have commercial, neighborhood commercial. Down the street is approved for 48 townhouses. Directly across the street from me is a mobile home park. So we have mobile home park. We're going to go through my beautiful townhouses right into the single-family residential to the west. So it is a good transition. It's a nice flow in that area. So, I think when we ask, is what I'm trying to do compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, I think the answer is yes. If we could look at, again, on these sheets here, the St. John's Water Management District wetlands map. It's the one that just has the green going right down the middle. Now, on this property, I have had the DEP, I've had the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, in conjunction with the St. John's, Brevard Natural Resources, and they were out there on that site, and they walked that site, and they demarked the wetlands. I had my surveyor go out right afterwards and shoot those onto this plan. Now, this is signed, sealed set, but this is dated in 2013, more than 5 years ago. So, for the purposes today, this map is really very close to what they marked. It's about the back 1/3 of the property is wetlands. So when I look at this map on my property, I look at this white area as my buildable space and the green area as wetlands. I'm not going to touch them. I don't want to disturb them. I'm not going to do anything with the wetlands. In fact, that area of wetlands could be considered a natural barrier to the single-family residentials to the west. believe me, if you stand in the back of this property, you cannot see the neighbors' houses behind me. There's no way. It's a couple 100 feet of solid, thick, to be honest, mostly pepper trees. But there are some oaks, there's other things. But it's massive. Cannot see them. So, again, I think that's a nice natural barrier. It's a good flow, natural barrier to the houses. That's really about the end of my speech. But looking at some of the comments from the neighbors, one reoccurring concern is stormwater runoff. Now, when we go through the site plan development, I'm not asking for any special compensation, special considerations for stormwater management. I fully intend to comply with what's required. Did I get everything? It's my wife. I'm sorry.
Ma'am, if you could state your name and address also for the record.
Jessica Hayes, and it's, what is it?
4645.
4645 North Courtney.
Could you get a little closer to the microphone?
Yeah.
There you go.
So all up and down Courtney, North Courtney, I kind of went through and looked, and it's all commercial going up and or multifamily and or the neighborhood commercial. I don't think there's any single-family homes left up there, that it's all built out. Property 2 doors just south of us, I just talked to the new owners this morning. They're going to be clearing the land and they're building commercial. So I think multifamily, being that it is the future land use, fits right in with what the plan is for the area, and it does help with our housing shortage that we definitely have going on right now.
Okay. If you could just give me 1 minute, sir. Are you done there?
I am.
Is there anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? All right, well, let's just go one at a time here. When you come up, if you could please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Don Barker. I live at 45. Is this better, sir?
There we go.
My name is Don Barker. I live at 4540 Deanna Court on Merritt Island, within 500 feet. I'm right next door neighbor of the Carpenters that's directly affected by this. I bought the property with my wife in 1994. We built a house there in 98. There was a large canal behind the house. I don't think it's visible on a lot of your maps. That's why I took some pictures, and it should be in your package.
Yes, we have that.
Now, that canal used to drain, but since the county changed the drainage a couple of years ago, that's it on the 5th of January in the dry season. It routinely floods with any tropical storm, hurricane, or even a good rain. If you note on your drawings there in the map, their property, Mr. Hayes' property, Mrs. Hayes' property, is on both the wetlands map and it's in the FEMA floodplain. And when you put both of them on there, there's I would say maybe 2/3 of the property is affected. And putting 11 units next to an SR where we all have one house per half acre. I didn't buy a house there. I bought it because it was a wetlands behind me, so nobody would ever build. And it's a beautiful ecosystem. There's alligators, 3 different types of turtles, osprey, herons. It's quite a diverse little ecosystem. So we're speaking opposed.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. And everyone else that wants to come up and speak, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to say what you like to or don't like about this idea. Sir, you want to go next?
I'll go last. I'll defer.
Okay. Yes, sir. And your name and address, please, for the record.
It's Mike Yock, 565 Indian Bay Boulevard,
Okay.
Merritt Island. I'm the vice president of the North Merritt Island Homeowners Association. And regarding this request of the Hayes to change their lots on North Courtney Parkway, from AU zoning to multifamily zoning would indeed allow up to 10 units, as he had mentioned. In Administration Policy 3, this request increases the residential density is incompatible with the existing land use because increased lighting, noise level, traffic, site activity would significantly diminish the enjoyment and safety and quality of life for existing neighborhoods in the area. And I personally went to Deanna Court, met with some of the neighbors, took photographs there, and it's a nice quiet place. It backs up, like they said, to the wildlife area, the wetlands. And we went on the 5th, and I photographed it, probably similar photographs to what Don has. And the place is wide. The water, it's like a lake back there. The water was about 60 feet wide in some places and 8 to 10 feet deep. There is no room for any more water to come into that area. I took one of the pictures behind one gentleman's house, and you can see the rail from his pool, and behind it is this lake. A foot more water, and he's underwater. This place cannot handle more water. And then when you go into Administration Policy 4, the character of the neighborhood, it will be materially and adversely affected by the proposed rezoning. You go into Policy 6, the proposed will be inconsistent with the written land development policy set forth by these administration policies. Policy 7, huge concern is the proposal will use substantially aggravate existing substantial drainage problems to the surrounding property. It will negatively impact the adjoining natural groundwater and flow of the wetlands. Policy 8, the character of the land use of the property surrounding the proposed rezoning, the change in conditions for the adjoining land use for property surrounding proposed rezoning, the impact on traffic, the established character of the surrounding property, the incompatibility with the proposed zoning classification with existing use. Therefore, it's inappropriate for this use.
So obviously you're against it.
Yes, and we support what the North Merritt Island Special District came up with for a solution.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Who'd like to come next? Yes, ma'am, come on up. And your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Brittany McLeod, and it's 4530 Deanna Court, Merritt Island, Florida.
Okay.
So today I stand here before you, not only as a neighbor in that community, but also as an environmental engineer. I am degreed from Florida Institute of Technology, class 2013 with that degree, and I've done my own assessments on that back property as the water does flow through my backyard as well. With the saturation levels in that area, we cannot sustain any more runoff or wetland delineation from any kind of runoff at all. If we raise the water table even 3 to 4 inches, I will have to put a bulkhead in the back of my yard to prevent my yard from flooding consistently. Also with that, there's plenty of types of species in that environment that are covered under the EPA and the DEP in protective order. Some of those include the egret, the blue herring, the sandhill cranes. They're all protected under the, the Migratory Bird Act. And then I have seen bald eagles in my backyard on a consistent basis, and they're protected under the Florida DEP, under the white and golden eagle rule, which prevents any kind of usage of land that could help to help the species degrade and or harm them and their future offspring in any way, shape, or form. And then moving forward with the watershed issue that could easily occur if these 10 to 11 units are built. According to the Brevard County Geographical Information System, you guys have an interactive map on your page that shows that 2/3 of this property is actually deemed wetland, not what has been proposed in front of you. That is from y'all's information, not else is out there. That is your interactive map that, according to your map, gets updated weekly. So with that, I'm not opposed to them using their land as seen fit. However, 11 different units back there. According to them, I am their target demographic. I am a young budding engineer who works out at NASA. I don't see this being the place I'm there because I have a child and a husband. I have friends that don't live in Merritt Island because of the fact that there's nothing to do on North Merritt Island if you are a young budding engineer. Okay, you go to work, but then you're gonna travel an hour and a half to go to Orlando to do something fun on the weekend. It doesn't really fit. I fit there because I have a husband and a child.
Okay.
But other than that, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Hello, my name is Ann Doucette. I live at 4560 Deanna Court, Merritt Island, with my husband Dana, and we are lifelong Merritt Island residents. I'm here to discuss the rezoning issue. My husband and I have lived on Deanna Court since 1994. Our subdivision was developed from a citrus grove over 40 years ago. We are zoned Suburban Residential, 1 house per half acre. The property of discussion is to the east of my residence. It splits my backyard with my neighbor to the south. There is a body of water running along the backside of our subdivision, and we own land on the other side of this canal. This land, which is connected to the property of discussion, is considered wetlands. The waterway is a major factor in our drainage. The current water level has been affected by the recent drainage updates to the north of our subdivision. In years past, it has gone down to a trickle during the dry season, allowing room for the rainy season. It now stays high during the rainy season. It stays high, and during the rainy season does encroach the property. Our subdivision does not want to be like Horseshoe Bend to the south. That always floods. I believe a zoning change to RU24 is too much density for the canal to handle. Another consideration is the properties adjacent to the property. Neither one is developed to the north or south. Then you have churches bordering these. Across the street, you do have a mobile home park. They have multiple ways to access Courtney. The large subdivision behind the mobile home park also has multiple points of entry onto Courtney. If the current zoning is changed to the requested zoning, you could have up to 25 cars having only one entry and exit point onto Courtney. I'm not against change. My family has lived in the area since the 1800s. We were removed from the current Air Force Base in the 50s. When my dad was a child, the only road was Tropical Trail because there was no barge canal. My husband and I have spent our childhood traveling the 2-lane Courtney up to Pine Island. I've seen much change to the island. I just want a reduction in the zoning. I want the Hayes family to be able to use their land. I just believe the density is too great. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Alan Carpentier, and I reside at 4550 Deanna Court, Merritt Island, Florida. My parcel, according to the zoning map, is parcel 41, and it is directly behind the Hayes' parcel 762 and 761. I'm also in concurrence with all my neighbors in discussion with the wetlands and the amount of pressure that is currently on the canal. I do have 3 bullet points, and I did email all the commissioners this. I wasn't able to attend the last meeting because I was on vacation, unfortunately. But the issues I want to raise is potential flooding. Stormwater runoff is a major deal, especially in our neighborhood, and as was pointed out with the photographs, just 1 or 2 more inches of water can potentially impact our properties. And right now, our property is eroding by this canal. And as was pointed out, we may have to put up bulkheads. So I guess the clearing of wetlands for multiple unit houses is definitely going to add some pressure to that canal. Even if water's rerouted, it's still not absorbed by ground if there's going to be pavement down there. So that would be my first issue is the stormwater runoff. Secondly, I bought the property because it wasn't around multifamily units. I too am a young budding engineer, don't let the gray hair fool you. I moved here 3 years ago from Jacksonville, Florida, because it was overpopulated with multifamily units. I wanted to get away. I wanted to provide my family the American dream, right? Single family home, butted up against a nature preserve without the overpressure of a multifamily unit. Secondly, the conservation and wildlife, as was pointed out, there is a lot of wildlife that live in that canal. Once land starts getting cleared, the wildlife is going to be certainly affected. And then lastly, property value. You know, many studies show that when multifamily units get built around single-family homes, the property value decreases. So I bought the property. It's increased in equity. I would hate to see that value decrease. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's too low for me.
Yes, sir.
Kenneth Marino, 4510 Deanna Court.
All right.
My concerns are, as of everybody else's, flooding. We have a duck walk and a bridge going over the creek by our house, and whenever we get even a light rain, it submerges. It goes completely underwater. It never did that before. We've been there for 5 years now, and we moved to North Merritt Island because it's rural. And when I lived on Long Island in New York, we lived in the rural end of Long Island. We have an RV up in the Poconos. It's rural. We like the rural life. Building a multifamily house in the area complex is going to take away from the ruralness. It's going to set a precedence for other people to come in and do the same thing on other lots. And as I had said to one of the other meetings I had gone to, my brother, who works for a zoning board on Long Island, he himself has said that once they allow one dwelling to be built, then others follow suit, and we don't want that. The wetlands are important to us. We have otters. I've seen otters. I've seen bobcats on the other side. I even saw a cougar. I'm very concerned because where I lived on Long Island, we had a ton of woods behind us. They built an apartment complex back there. All the deer disappeared. And we don't want to see this happen to North Merritt Island. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else would like to speak for or against this item? All right. Sir, if you could come back up to the podium, and seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Now, I do understand, you know, you still got to go through permitting and everything else. This is just a zoning deal.
Right.
You know, wetlands, stormwater runoff, all that's going to be handled no matter what we say yay or nay.
Yes, sir.
Any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The canal behind the subject property, who owns that? Is it owned by the homeowners association? Is it?
No, it seems like, you know, if you look at, you know, again, one of your maps with the water, you know, and you can see it goes over both. When they built that neighborhood, they filled in these, that's all Sam Sula muck. When they built this neighborhood, they filled in their wetlands, they destroyed their wetlands, brought it right up, filled in the land, pushed it right up to the setbacks. Where do you think all that water goes? So they destroyed their wetlands. Now they want to sit in their backyard and look at mine.
So who
And
owns
say,
the
"Isn't that
property?
beautiful?"
Do you own the property, or is the homeowners behind?
My property line is underwater.
Staff, do we know?
My
I'm
property
looking
line's
at the
underwater.
I'm
It's
looking
all-
for the survey right now. From our tax maps, it looks like it's dependent on where that actual water body is, it might be shared. We don't have,
From
Looks
what
like
I
it's
understand,
shared
I heard-
property lines all the way
Yeah.
throughout that entire. Sir, y'all have had your chance, I'm sorry, but y'all have had your chance, now we've got to finish this thing up here.
Staff, what is the situation with the wetlands? You can build on, it's just a small percentage, is that correct?
that is correct. So
What is that percentage?
the percentage to impact wetlands is 1.8%.
Okay. And then you plan to do 11 units? Is that what I'm?
Well, the number 11 is a function of the designation and the math. So many units per acre, so many acres at 11. Now, I don't know, we look at the one wetland map, I don't know exactly how much buildable space I have there, because when I had it surveyed and everyone was on there, it's only good for 5 years. So we're going to have to demark those wetlands again, and then I'll know how much. So if it's 9 or 10 or 8, it's going to make sense. It's going to be how many I can put in there that makes sense, so where it's not all jammed up.
That'll all be delineated in permitting.
Yeah,
You know,
when we
here
go
again,
through
this
that.
is.
What's
really
the, staff,
just
what's the cap on limit of the units, number of units?
11.
So the cap and density is governed by the future land use through, and that is 4 units to the acre. So by rights of your land use is 11 units. Whether Mr. Hayes can develop that, with that, it'd be up to him and his engineer.
That's unlikely, as there is wetlands present.
Correct.
That is correct.
Another question I have is, with site planning, I would imagine there is going to have to be some water retention, or would there not be, as it's not a subdivision? So can you please just inform me on that, and will they have to maintain their own water, any rainwater?
It's not really a zoning issue, is my understanding, is that they will have to retain all their stormwater on site and maintain it. But again, that's not a zoning issue. It's for site planning and the engineers to figure that out.
I understand. Just trying to get an idea. So if he has wetlands and also has to retain water, we're really dwindling down how many units could actually go here.
Darcy's going to come up and she's from Natural Resources and she can probably better, or explain it better than I can.
So one other aspect of this development, it's in the North Merritt Island overlay for additional stormwater treatment. He's going to have to compensate for any fill in the floodplain. He has to compensate for the rate and the volume, because he's north of Hall Road. And that's going to be probably a guiding, that and the wetlands will be a guiding force to your design. So they have enhanced stormwater requirements on North Merritt Island. Just want to let you guys know that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And unfortunately, my computer died with all of my information on this. Was there any negative reports on schools increasing the housing in this area?
I know the answer to that, and, because I met with the lady at the school board for the concurrency.
If I can, I'm just going to
Oh, you're going
relay
to-
to staff. That way, they are able to answer the question. Sorry about that, sir.
Based on the capacity, the school district is saying that they'll have capacity to serve the potential students.
Okay. Oh, okay, yeah, it's not bad. Okay. I have no further questions at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
You do, for the applicant, you do plan on hooking up to sewer and city water?
Yes, yes, sir. It's
Okay.
right there.
My question for staff, if you can explain the difference between the RU24, the 11 units that the applicant wants, and suburban residential?
I can, so Suburban Residential is a half-acre lot. So RU24 is a low-density multifamily zoning district. So it allows for apartments. It also allows for townhomes. so which is an attached product on a 7,500 square foot lot. So it's a very different zoning district, which allows different units.
So
Different
Suburban
types.
Residential would have, like, call it 6, 7 single-family homes on this property instead of multifamily?
Correct. It's a very tight site with the wetlands that are on the property, with the stormwater. It'll be up to Mr. Hayes and his engineer to design that property to accommodate for how many units he's able to do that.
All right. Just going through my notes here, I know environment popped up. We had the Eagle Nest map on our agenda. There was no Eagle Nest there. The Scrub Jay occupancy, there was no Scrub Jays there. I do feel that duplexes or townhomes is a high-density project for the area, especially North Merritt Island. Also, I'm not seeing any RU24 in the surrounding area, at least on the maps that I've seen. However, I do see no negative concurrency impacts for schools, for utilities, for transportation, and I am happy that you're also willing to go through city and city water and sewer. However, I'm still mixed. I want to hear the opinions of my colleagues up here, but as of right now, I would like to see you compromise and go with Suburban Residential. Again, that's just my feeling. We're still all discussing. That's the way I feel at the moment.
Mr. Chair, if I can just jump in for a second. If you're having some concerns about the apartment type uses, there is another zoning classification that just allows for townhomes, which is the RA2-4. That zoning is just outside of the purview of the map. It's on the north side of Poacher. That was approved back in 2017-ish. So that which would allow the same type of density, but it does not allow for the apartment type units. It would allow for townhomes in the attached product, single family product, if that's an option the board wants to entertain.
And you said that was RA?
2-4.
Yeah, it's a RA, which is a residential attached.
And were those like the towns I see with a garage or what have you, and then kind of they mirror each other?
So a townhome product is you own the land that the structure's on all the way up through the walls. And so it's a fee simple product where an apartment is not. That means that there's one owner and that owner owns all the units within there.
Thank you, sir. Those are all the questions I have for the moment. Thank you, sir.
Sir, could you come back up? Would you be opposed to that?
I haven't studied RA24 or the other one to really understand. I want to build some units and own them and rent them. I also understand the density, you know what I mean?
Well, density is going to be limited by permitting.
I think so too.
Period.
Right.
Stormwater runoff, retention areas, wetlands.
We have work to do, and we can only fit so much
Right.
comfortably, and I'm down with that.
Mr. Chair, Henry, I know you're familiar with this area. I want to know.
He's a professional Merritt Islander.
Yeah, and the mayor.
That's what I was waiting for.
I just been waiting for my turn. I just let you guys go and then I'm gonna unload. It's my turn.
Please.
We some time ago approved something, and most of y'all were here, that we allowed 48 units at the southwest quadrant of Poacher Road and North Courtney. And we've always been concerned up there to have multifamily units. And that area is really and truly it's not conducive to anything to have multiple family units up there. We've got more issues. The people that have lived there over 50, 60 years, we call it the mud hole at Merritt. You just can't have, more intrusion into the system. The system can't tolerate it. So, but it goes beyond. And I guess I was massively emphatic that 48 units, that, we'll do 48 units, but let's hope and pray we never see this again. And so I'm going to say vehemently against any more multifamily of any sort up there. It's just, you open this thing up, it's a small lot. Most of us live on, I don't know, 2, 4, 10 acres. The neighbors are coming and saying, you know, you did it for Joe, let's do it for me. And then it's just going to massively contribute to a road that's well saturated now. We've got more traffic up there. I mean, I could go on and tell you all the things that are wrong, but there's just not room for multifamily of any kind. Yeah, townhouses. That one complex is in there, and to the best of my recollection, that was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and they haven't built it yet. So to me, it gives us an indication that it's not conducive. I mean, we have everybody and his brother up there working, and if they haven't started on that project, you know, other than this gentleman telling us about his, there wouldn't be any up there. So I guess I've been a Merritt on too long, and I can't support anything.
I was going to say, we have, you know, we looked. There's at least 4 other locations with these townhouses or duplexes over the Barge Canal, North Merritt Island. So, and the 48, you know, which may get built. But there's 4 other locations. Some of them are entire neighborhoods of duplexes over the Barge Canal. So, I mean, I'm consistent, man. I'm compatible. I'm right there. I'm going to be restricted by the number, naturally what I can build, and I'm going to comply with all the stormwater management, which will restrict me. But I want to be under Res 4. I can't be AU anymore. I don't meet the requirements. I need to go somewhere.
You know, I would agree, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd agree to all that if you let me put 60 on my lot. That's a joke.
Okay, because I'm ready.
Chairman,
So, again,
Could you get closer to the mic,
Sure.
please?
There's townhouses on Gator. There's an entire community of duplexes on Seagate Circle. There's townhouses and more than townhouses. There's like 4 townhouses on Shuttle. Then you have of course, Cape Crossings is a whole different thing of all of its own. And then you have off of Hall Road, that whole community back in there that was bought out a while back, and they built all of those townhouses. The other thing, as far as it being in a neighborhood, it's not in a neighborhood. It fronts Courtney. So Courtney Parkway, the entire thing on North Merritt Island is commercial, multifamily, which, okay, let's not call it multifamily, let's call it duplexes or townhouses, which are there, and there's some right on North Courtney as well. And then you have the commercial and the residential or neighborhood commercial. There's really not any single-family homes on North Courtney, north of the Barge Canal. There just isn't. So then to limit and go to make us do single-family homes, that doesn't make sense either, because that isn't conducive. That doesn't flow either. So we're in this like little bubble in that future land use. You have the commercial right next to us, and then there's one lot, and then the church, which the church has now turned the parking lot into cruise parking. So, I mean, I guess I understand where you're coming from about you don't want all these units, but with all the stormwater and everything, we know that that's going to shrink down. We're asking for the zoning, and we won't end up with 11, but we'll probably end up with maybe 8. And if we go the RU with only allowed 2, then that limits us to 6, you know?
Okay. All right, thank you, ma'am.
We can debate it all day.
Can I?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir, Mr. John.
Okay. You stated that you're a general contractor, is that correct?
That is correct.
Have you done any developments before?
No.
None at all?
Built my own house, you know, but.
Okay. What type of construction do you do?
Mostly remodeling, and I'm also a marine contractor, seawalls, boat lifts.
Okay. I'm an advocate for development. I think that the developers can do a good job, but experienced developers are more important than people that don't know how they're doing it. We would want a successful development. We wouldn't want you to start and then lose money and make it
Right.
into an eyesore in the neighborhood. You've not really pushed this and presented it in a way that I feel comfortable. You didn't put together any preliminary plans that we could look at. You don't even know if you can fit 10
I don't know how
units
much
on
land
this.
I have, that's correct.
Right. Wouldn't it have been better had you have done that, done some preliminary engineering, invested a little money to see if this thing is going to work or not?
No.
Why not?
Well, it's, when I started the process, I was with the county, and they say, you don't need a site plan for a zoning change.
True.
So, how, once we establish these things, like I said, I don't fit AU anymore. It doesn't work. I have to go somewhere. This will allow me to build some units. Once we get past this phase, the next phase is, that's when I determine how much land do I have? Where's the wetlands start? Because I'm not asking to go into the wetlands. I'm going to turn my back to them and look at our buildable area. So once we determine how much space I have, then I can get a better understanding of how many units I can build. And then once, so what if I spend all this money and, everyone says, you know what? No, we want you to stay AU. I mean.
It's a risk.
Huh?
It's a risk.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, Miss Liz?
So I don't agree that there's plenty of multifamily in the vicinity of where you're talking about building. Everything to the west of you is SR. And along Courtney Parkway, it's AU, couple of BU1As, some commercial. So I have a real concern. There is not one RU24 on this entire zoning map.
Yeah,
So
there's
I
the
just don't
RA2, I'm sorry.
I just don't think that it's compatible, personally, an apartment complex or townhomes on this piece of property. I agree with a lot of the neighbors that they built there with the understanding that it was 1 to 1.5 units per acre, and I think they had some expectation of even with the AU, you would have only been able to put 1 unit on it with your existing zoning. So, so bringing it up to 11 units, that's a pretty high density bump. My opinion on this is that I would support the North Merritt Island Special District Board's recommendation to consider a suburban residential rezoning, which with 2.79 acres, I believe that would get you 5 units. And to me, that would be compatible with the surrounding area.
Okay, now there's a mobile home park across the street.
But you're not abutting the mobile home park, you're abutting
It's a
That's
mobile-
been
the
there almost
subdivision.
40 years.
It's huge, it's massive. It's a mobile home park.
Been there a long time.
And the Citrus Groves subdivision you're talking about is all suburban residential with lots on half-acre or larger. So I know you say that's a large subdivision, but it is larger lots. It'll be larger than what you're proposing. So that's my recommendation, Chairman.
Okay, hearing that, I'll bring it back to the board again.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
on the wetlands, what do you intend to do with the wetlands?
What I would, as far as, I don't want to build anything on the wetlands, but I
Are you
would.
Are you going to be cleaning up those pepper trees? Or?
I want to go in there and get those pepper trees out of there. I can't even walk to the back of the property. It's so thick with pepper trees. And it would seem to me that in the wetlands, I was just talking to my wife about it, you get some of those pepper trees out of there, and there's other trees there, but you could let some sunlight in there. That would probably help with the water situation. It would help dry up some of that water. But I would love to pull out those pepper trees on those wetlands. Love it.
Mr. Chair,
would you?
Yes, sir. Mr. Ron, you done?
Not yet.
Okay.
As far as coming to us with a plan, we've had a heck of a lot of developers who have come to us with no plan. It's never been a requirement. I mean, it's nice to have, but for a lot of developments, it's a big investment on their part. I don't consider that to be something that we should hold against him. And a third of his property is not going to be developed, period.
Or even more.
And it may be even more. And that third of his property is everything that faces those houses in Citrus River Groves. If he doesn't clean the pepper trees out, those people will never even be able to see what's happening over there, or hear it, or anything else.
Yeah.
Because there's just going to be way too much greenery to do that. Also, this is on State Road 3. It's going to be almost all commercial of some kind or another. As it is, it's AU. He can put a farm on there, put horses, cattle, whatever he wants. If I were living there, I did live there in Citrus River Groves, but I'm a farm person, so I don't really object to having cows, hearing them moo at the middle of the night, because they can get really loud. But I don't really see a problem with this development.
I just wanted to interject something.
Are you
When time
done,
comes.
Mr. Ron? Okay, Mr. William.
Okay. Going through the process of, because this is a change of zoning, and I think that's where we're at. So you're asking to go from agriculture to RU to 4. Now, if we were to grant that, he would still have to go through the process of application, design, rendering, and all of that, and that would still come back to us, correct?
No.
No? Okay.
The next step after this item goes in front of the Board of County Commissioners, then everything else would be staff review.
And the county commissioners could still knock it down, even if we approve it?
For the zoning? Yes.
Correct. Because we're just recommending to the
Correct.
commission
Correct.
our thoughts. So I'm just walking you through the process. This is not the end of it.
Final, right, yes, but it's important. I would like your approval.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand.
Thank you.
But just to clarify what Mr. Williams said, even if we didn't approve or we do approve, the commissioners have the final say.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Based on everybody's discussion today, I think there are some valid points made. I personally believe that the density across the street is far higher than 11 units. So this is something that he's not going to get 11 units. He's probably going to get 6 or 7. But that's speculation, and it's not our job to make that decision.
Yeah, this is just strictly zoning.
But it's something that, so I'll sit here and I'll make a motion to approve the applicant's request. Just based on the fact that I believe that the mobile home park, Henry, it may have been there for a very long time, but it still is, in my opinion, higher density, just based on the fact that, I'm looking at a map here, and there's probably 150 trailers in there or more. And this gentleman's trying to put in 11 townhouses. So my motion sits on the table.
I second that.
All right, we got a motion from Ben, a second by Ron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
All right, let's go through the opposed first. Mr. Menaboo?
Against?
Liz?
Against.
William?
For.
Pete?
Against.
Against.
John? Ben?
Aye.
Four.
Did everyone get that?
No, I'm sorry, I missed Mr. Hoppengarten.
Against.
Okay. Mark, what were you? Mark,
4.
you're for. Let me see.
4, 5. 5, 4 against. I think.
5
Motion
against,
failed, 5-4.
5 against, 4 for 4,
Yes.
correct? That motion did not pass.
Okay.
All right, don't give up. County Commissioners next.
Thanks,
Well, we
guys.
still have to make a decision, don't we?
Yeah, you
have
guys
to
need
vote
to
on
make a new
something.
motion.
Sir, would you be willing to limit it to 6 units? I'm not saying that the board would even consider that, it's just an idea.
Right. Could we do the RU24? I can't make that decision without my,
That's,
maybe we got to make that decision.
you are
together.
going to RU24.
He's
I
talking
mean,
about
RA.
Oh, okay.
Could we stay stay RU24, but limit the density? As opposed to shuffling me into a different box of something else,
Because the-
R2 or whatever.
The SR,
The SR, instead of going
Allows you
into
to build-
SR, just stay the RU24, but possibly limit the density, is that what you're thinking?
Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can just interject for a second, as you guys mull this decision over, what you could do is you could still stay with the RU24 and do a BDP to cap the density at 3 units the acre or 2 units the acre. It's up to you as far as what direction that you want to go to.
that was what I was thinking, because with the SR, how many units how many houses can he build?
5,
5.
5.
So it's a half acre, that's 2 units to the acre.
which is compatible to the
And
neighborhood
if
to
he-
the west.
If he builds 5 houses, that's going to cause more water issues than if he builds townhouses.
They'd have to follow the same stormwater procedures as residential or commercial. They'd have to retain, they can't flood an abutting neighborhood.
Well, they're going to build up the foundation of the house, and there's going to be a swale, and it's going to run wherever it runs.
And so will the
Not
apartment
really.
complex.
No?
No. County rules, this is one thing I wanted to ask if you really understood. You've got to retain your water on your property.
Right. That
And
first inch of, yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
25%
First 1 inch,
typically
right.
of the
That's even
parcel.
more restrictive
And-
on, according to Darcy, because of the new stormwater plans on North Merritt Island.
For the certain structures that would be in the flood zone.
And
Some of them
wetlands.
won't be, some of them will, so it's a mixed bag, right? But we could, maybe say 3 units per acre? Instead of 4, or something, to get some kind of approval or, recommendation.
In my honest opinion, I still don't think that's compatible enough. I know staff mentioned RA24. I'm willing to go with that, or your suburban residential. I know I'm just one man here, and there's a whole team here. So that's what I have to say.
That's where you are. Thank you,
Yeah.
Peter.
well, the RA means he can't rent them out. He can't, there'll be houses that he builds and has to sell. He divests himself entirely of the property.
Right, it's not.
So the difference.
I don't know what his
yeah.
plan is, but it may very well be that by keeping him as a rental, that gives him an ongoing source of income.
It's exactly what I'm looking for, yes.
Yeah.
So staff, you clarify on that RA, you cannot have as a rental property, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and what about with suburban residential?
Suburban residential is a single-family zoning district, so no.
I mean, I'm looking at a map here, and there's that neighborhood that I'm pretty sure this board approved, and I was sitting up here when we did. And I don't know when this map was done, but that looks like 0 lot lines. High density, I mean, it's residential, and it's not multifamily, but I'm just kind of having a hard time why the board's so against this when this area it's being built up and change is happening. So, I don't know, I'm at a loss. I don't see anybody up here denying the item. I mean, where's that motion? So should we all try to help this gentleman accomplish something and then also help the members of the neighborhood not get this 11 townhouses that they don't want?
Well, the main concern that I've noticed, been in recognition of that, is the stormwater, the wetland impacts and stuff like that. That's going to be all regulated throughout the permitting process, the site plan, everything. So, I mean, right now, as you speak, you're asking for 11 units per acre. Hypothetically, we're going to just sit here and we're having to guess, you know, you might have 6 buildable acres, maybe 7, who knows, until it goes through DEP,
Right.
you know, site planning. So, I mean, and then by that time, you're going to have to add retention area that you're going to lose property.
Right.
You know, because you will retain all your water. That's just county code.
That's right.
Mr. Chair, can I, so I think we're getting farther down in the weeds as we talk about this, about stormwater
Zoning.
and wetlands. So when we're looking at rezoning applications like this, we look for 2 things. Consistency with the comp plan, which RU24 can be considered as consistent. And we
Correct.
look for compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. And this property, like all the other ones, are in the neighborhood. Whether it's clearly defined or not, this is in the neighborhood.
Right.
And we do need to recognize that. So one of the things that you guys need to do today is to, you know, decide whether this zoning classification is compatible with the surrounding area.
That is the only question on the table. Is it compatible?
Zoning, yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll take another swing at this. I will recommend approval with a BDP limiting, capping the amount of units totaling 6. So however many, is that 2, 3 per acre? So I'll let that motion see what happens, but I would like to see this go through.
I'll second.
And what's the zoning?
The applicant's okay with that, capping it at 6?
He mentioned he was earlier.
Capping it at 6, I got it. It's my boss. 6, I mean, you know, and again, you know, we still have one more stop, but
Take it and run.
I'd rather take a recommendation than a full, you know,
Right.
denial, yes.
Because you're still going to go in front of the county commission.
Yeah, so it'd be
Okay,
nice.
we got a motion by Ben with a BDP to cap it at 6 per,
3 units per acre.
3 units per acre.
So that's RU2-4 with a BDP capping the overall density of 3 units per acre, correct?
Correct, and a second by William. All those in favor say aye.
Is the applicant okay with that?
RU24, 3 units per acre, yes.
Okay.
That would equal 8 units, 2.79 times 3.
All right, well, I've said 6 units total, so I don't know what it is, but we can figure that out later. Well, I'm just saying 6 units.
Yeah. I would leave it at 3 units per acre. Because currently it's, without that, it's 4.
All right, I'll
You know,
leave it at the 3.
And we can just cut it by 75%.
Are you good, staff?
That's what you guys want to do, but yes.
With the motion?
Yes.
And the second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Opposed was Liz and John. That passed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
That was the easy part.
You ready for item 11?
Yes, item H11, please.
Okay, Justin M. Fallscroft requests a change of zoning classification from RR1, which is rural residential, to AU, which is agricultural use. On tax account number 2404081 in District 1.
Is the applicant here? All right, if you could state your name and address for the record and a little bit about what you're wanting to do there.
Yes, sir. My name is Justin Falscroft. My address is 3000 Friday Lane, Cocoa, Florida, 32926. I just would like to change specifically to AU to utilize. I have 3.96 acres. I currently have horses on the property. That's kind of irrelevant. I would like to build a shop to house my stuff. Everybody around me has a shop, you know, similar to what I like to do. Being limited on size restrictions to the half square footage of my house for RR1 just kind of limits the size of the shop that I'd like to build to house my horse trailers and my things like that I'd like to keep out of the weather. I currently have an outbuilding right now that I'd like to get rid of and then put it was there when I bought the property, and put it in a similar location, but, you know, make it a little bigger. You know, it's pretty displacing the same amount of water, everything like that for any surrounding. Also, my daughter's a barrel racer, so I buy and sell horses just for fun. It's not a business, but, you know, there is some potential for some stuff I'm interested in, and she's also interested in, you know, if I wanted to buy and sell a horse here and there or board one, you know, that's all I really have agricultural wise as far as animals go. I don't really have an interest in having any other animals other than a horse or two here and there. And if I was there, maybe I could do it as a side commercial deal, you know, just based on horses I find when we go to horse shows and things like that.
Is there a home on the property now?
Yes, sir. I live there.
And that's what's minimizing your shop size, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, anybody in the audience want to speak for or against this item? That's good news. Seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve or send a recommendation to County Commissioners for item H1, RR1 to AU.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion by Pete, a second by Mr. William. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Looks like you're going to be heading for a bigger shop.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You got to go through county commission, though.
Yeah, understood.
All right, sir. Okay, item H12.
Edic and Ashley Moreno request a change of zoning classification from GU, which is general use, to RR1, which is rural residential, on tax account number 2423907 in District 1.
And you, ma'am, are the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Moreno is not able to attend today. Mr. Moreno is not able to attend today.
And are you speaking on his behalf?
Yes, sir.
Do we need a?
I'm
Both of them
applicant
are
and.
applicants.
Yes.
We're good, we're good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, and your name and address for the record?
Ashley Moreno, 1640 Sioux Drive, Cocoa, Florida.
And a little bit about what you're wanting to do there?
I just want to build a house on it. It currently has a concrete pad from a previous building that was on the property, so I want to be able to build a house.
Anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? That's good news.
Awesome.
Seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I recommend approval of item H12.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Ben, a second by Pete. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passed unanimously.
Good luck. And 13. So we have 14 and 15 now.
Now we go to the big one.
Okay. So item H14.
H14.
H14 is proposed language to mirror St. John's model ordinance with respect to irrigation scheduling without the enforcement provision. So the County Commission will hear it tomorrow. The Building Construction Advisory Committee heard this last week. They didn't have any, they passed it forward without comment. This allows us to continue to be eligible for cost share, and there are 4 other municipalities in Brevard that have already adopted it. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify here, this would be basically regulating the irrigation schedule, and is not to occur between 10 and 4 p.m., or 10 a.m. and 4 p.m.?
Right, it can never occur between 10 and 4, but during daylight savings time, you're limited to 2 days, and during standard time, it's 1 day.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I will tell you that this is, if you don't pass this ordinance, then the staff does not get the opportunity to do the cost share grants that St. John's makes available. So the city of Satellite Beach, if we had not passed our ordinance, we would have been out almost over $500,000. And that's all stormwater, dredging dollars that we use and match. So I'm glad they got the enforcement out of it because they didn't let us do that. So that was a stickler, but it's not a bad ordinance, especially since we're, looking at conserving water, et cetera. So, I'm done.
I was waiting on a motion there, Miss Liz.
Oh, so I make a motion to approve.
I got some,
Oh,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Was this pretty much designed for subdivisions?
It regulates residential and commercial use, so more than just subdivisions, individual homeowners.
Yeah, but if you read through the lines, and I guess the way I read it, it was designed more so around subdivisions than it was landowners in excess of, and I'm going to use the term for simplification, 1 acre. And meaning the way people with acreage do things, sometimes you're in a time frame that they accomplish a lot to do with the water. There's unique situations here in this county where a lot of people irrigate in those other times between 10 and 4. And it appeared like this thing was subdivision driven, where everybody's on a sprinkler system and they do go from X to Y, whatever time frame. But the people with larger parcels, it seemed like they would have to follow the same rules.
Well, I believe they would. There are some exceptions with regards to, if you have to have automatic shutoffs and
Right.
hand watering and establishing plants. I think if you have larger acreage, you're probably not irrigating all that acreage anyway. You're probably just irrigating your
Yeah, I was
garden
thinking
around the home.
Just unique, but there's many more, but like ag. Like
Doesn't apply to ag.
Yeah, but like sod farms and stuff.
It doesn't apply to sod farms.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, so. Who's going to be the water warden on these?
There's no enforcement provision.
Okay.
So currently, we did ask St. John's what they're doing currently for enforcement, and they send letters.
I thought you were signing up for that.
You're going to be my assistant.
I think you might scare a couple of them.
So we don't have a whole lot of sod farms in Satellite Beach, so that question didn't come up to my council, but, so I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second the motion. I just wanted to confirm, this counts for well and for reclaimed water too, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Got a motion by Liz, a second by
Mr.
Pete.
Chair, you need to ask for public comment.
Anyone here want to speak for or against this item? I'm sorry, I forgot you on this one. So we're good. Okay, got a motion by Liz, a second by Pete. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to make this brief. This is the last item. This is item H15. This is the public hearing for the adoption of the ear-based amendment 2017-2.2, DEO 17-3ER. Pursuant to Florida Administrative Code, Chapter 73C, 49, local government must submit an evaluation and appraisal report every 7 years for principal process of updating their comprehensive plans to reflect changes in state legislative requirements since the last update of the comprehensive plan to Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Brevard County's deadline to adopt the 2016 year is March 31st, 2021. While there were numerous minor updates proposed in this EAR amendment. The primary changes address the legislation establishing the peril flood. Florida Statutes 163.31781F enacted during the 2015 legislative session. During the transmittal phase of the EAR, DEO provided an objections recommendation and comments report indicating the proposed amendments to the coastal redevelopment component and the coastal management element needed to include. And those are 3 items that this new legislation back in 2015 that we needed to address. So the proposed amendment 2017-2.2 provided as an attachment included 13 new coastal management element policies developed specifically to comply with section 163.31782F Florida statutes peril flood, as well as text modifications that were previously transmitted to DEO in 2017. Additions to the comprehensive plan are shown as underlined, and deletions are shown as strike-through. Modifications not previously reviewed by DEO are highlighted in yellow. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Darcy from Natural Resources, who we've been working for the past year to get this updated. So we've been working on this since 2017, so be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
And I would just like to add, based on, Bruce had called earlier, there's a lot of yellow in there, whole policies. Inadvertently during transmittal, there was part of the floodplain protection. There was a couple sections in there, just for some reason they were omitted. So there's stuff that's put back there highlighted in yellow, and it looks like we're adding all this new stuff. The only real kind of new stuff is the peril of flood. Just so you saw a lot of yellow in there. That's what it was, for the most part.
I also just want to mention that our property rights element, which this board passed, is in there as well.
Correct.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Ron.
I had a couple of general questions, and just reading through all the text in there, does the county's stormwater utilities program for periodic and scheduled inspections cover only stormwater facilities that is on county land or the county maintains? Or is it also on private land?
Are you talking about the stormwater credits?
Stormwater utilities program provides periodic scheduled inspections.
Could you let me know?
And I was wondering if a developer developer says, I'm going to do a stormwater, this is how I'm going to handle my stormwater. Does the county inspect private property, or is it only government?
Yeah. I think Virginia can address that.
All right, good afternoon. Yes, every other year, our staff go out and inspect all of the permitted stormwater treatment systems to determine whether they're in compliance with their, any sort of, they get a 25% credit for maintaining their stormwater, and they can get a larger fee-based credit if they go above and beyond the minimum treatment requirements.
Okay, so it does apply to private as well as government?
Yes.
Okay. And the other question I had was, since this document is, some of the stuff was from 2009 or so, it's quite old, have all the various developmental requirements listed been put into land development regulations? For example, under meeting future needs, policy 3.1, paragraphs B and C, about allowing runoff, addresses runoff. Have those been put into regulations, or is that still to be done?
I think what you're asking for is right now we're dealing with the policies. The next step, if the board decides to move forward and DEO accepts this, the next step is to address these policies in our land development code. So the answer to your question is no, but we're planning on doing that once this finishes the approval process.
Okay, all right. And then I did have some specific questions. One about the recreation open space element parks. It appears that we are changing it so that the number of acres per 1,000 people is now county-wide as opposed to being in each one of the 3 recreation districts.
I think that's a Parks and Rec section of the comprehensive plan. I'm trying to pull it up here.
Now, it's in the recreation and open space element, parks and open space system.
Oh, there's Tad.
So, yeah, so that change was proposed by Parks and Rec when we went through the transmittal. So what you have, as Jeffrey mentioned, is today, we transmitted this document 2017, I believe, and then we got a bunch of comments back from the state, and mainly regarding the perils of flood. So we put everything on hold. Normally, we have like a 40-day window where we retransmit, but because we had to address the perils of flood, and DEO had their ARC letter to us, and then we went out and got some grants to get that information, to build a database. And I think what we have from the peril of flood standpoint is far more superior than what we would have had since we went through that exercise, and if we would have just dreamt up some policies for you. But the changes that you're looking at were the ones that have been proposed by the departments. They were transmitted back in 2017, and they were approved by the LPA at that time. The specific members, I don't remember who was all here and who wasn't here, and also approved by the Board of County Commissioners to be transmitted and those changes to be made.
I was just curious as to what benefit we got out of doing that.
I think what it does is it allows parks from a planning standpoint to be more consistent throughout the county than just looking at area-specific needs. I know that I believe that our park system is far above that. I don't know the particular number, but I remember that they were above that.
Okay. And let's see, is that the last question I got? Yeah. Another question was in policy 1.8 about Parks and Rec. It says we're going to create a greenway network. No, the change was it used to say we're going to create a greenway network, and then the wording changes like, okay, we're not going to create this network, but if someone else does, we'll work with them. And to me, that just says we don't want a greenway network. Is that really what we're doing? We had an intention to have a greenway network, and now we're changing it so that we won't have one?
I'm going to shoot from the hip here because I'm not with parks, but I think what they're saying there is that we don't have the ability to have that greenway network, but we have many programs like EELS where we've gone out and we've gotten a lot of environmentally sensitive land. Our wetland impact ordinances is very restrictive and things like that. So there is that conservation element, and the county has proactively seeked out lands to manage, which would essentially be kind of a greenway network, if you will. It's just not, they're just not connected. They have the linear park here in Vieira, which runs down the east side of 95 from the zoo down south. So, I mean, they are trying to do that. I just don't know that it's that it's an actual specific goal that they're out and trying to achieve, other than just managing their parks and coming up with newer properties.
Okay.
Let me ask one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Is this helpful for Parks and Rec?
I believe that it is. I mean, they sat down with the document and they've updated it, and the updates that we're seeing that are being questioned are their proposed updates.
They're not more restrictive, are they?
I don't know if they're more restrictive or not restrictive, but I think it's more what they're able to achieve, and it's in line with what they had, what was originally in the comp plan.
Okay.
All right, and another thing in the coastal management element, coastal high hazard areas, policy 6.2, says in part, improvements may only be considered when facilitation of such improvements is needed to support the densities programmed into future land use. Could you explain that, what that means?
Could you please give me the policy number again?
Policy 6.2
6.2.
of the coastal management element, coastal high hazard areas.
Pardon me while I get on the same page, of which there are many, many pages. Let's see. Part 10.
It's X25.
X25, thank you, Alex. Okay. And you're looking at policy
6.2.
6.2. So this is a policy that you can find throughout the comprehensive plan when you're talking about county infrastructure and putting, say, infrastructure in a riverine floodplain or a wetland or a surface water buffer, because of what government does. Sometimes government needs a little extra wiggle room to get into areas that we normally wouldn't want to. I'll use an example of, since I'm not really into transportation corridors, it talks about not putting infrastructure in the coastal high hazard area, which would include sewer lines, but, under the circumstances we're in now, where septic tanks are causing problems for the Indian River Lagoon, lesser of two evils, let's talk about putting government infrastructure in an area you normally wouldn't want it. Now, if you're talking about a new subdivision and they want to put a county road in, or they want to put a road in there dedicated to the county, well, you put it in there, but we're not going to take responsibility for long-term finance when we know it's vulnerable to storm surge. So then all that responsibility is placed upon the developer or the HOA. I hope that answers your question.
When I read it, it said that what concerned me was support densities programmed on the future land use. It seemed to me that we're saying because the future land use allows a certain density, we don't care if it's in the coastal high hazard area. It's what's going to make the determination as to whether we allow something is the future land use density. And it seemed to me that that doesn't quite fit right.
That's a good point. There's another policy there that talks about the presence of infrastructure not being sufficient reason to increase density into an area. I'm just trying to think where we've. Tad, do you recall where we've applied this policy? I'm just trying to think of where we might have applied this policy in the recent times.
Is a concern when you're considering future land use that you wouldn't have the ability to take the coastal high hazard into concern? Or is that what you're?
Well, it's kind of like saying we've got this coastal high hazard area and we don't want to build in it. We want to restrict the building, but if the future land use says we can put this much density on it, then it doesn't make any difference whether it's coastal high hazard or not. We're going to go by the density. The future land use is the #1 requirement, as opposed to the coastal high hazard area being the #1 requirement.
So I think that there would be multiple policies that would come into effect in making that determination. So when you look at the coastal high hazard area, there's multiple policies, as Darcy mentioned, there's one that says that the infrastructure, that we can't have any infrastructure or public infrastructure in that area. And then when you get into the perils of flood, one of the things that we had to wrestle with is, through the Burt Harris, that when we have density on property that's been established, there's some development right that has been established there. So we were very careful in coming up with the peril of flood policies. When we look at limiting that, we had to provide some engineering ways for folks to still be able to maintain the ability to get some of that density. Now, as we all know, if the comp plan says 10 units to the acre, we very rarely get to 10 units to the acre because of the infrastructure needs and stuff like that. So there are going to be some other restrictive things there. I don't believe that the future land use would be the absolute driving force. But if the future land use said there was 10 units to the acre, and this is a very bad example in a coastal high hazard, then I think that someone could come in with an application that would request 10 units to the acre, but there would be many other policies that would come into play that would allow that to happen or not to happen.
And I think too, Tad, is it correct that sometimes you have a future land use that supports a higher density than the zoning? So someone has to come in and ask permission to change the zoning, and at that point, that's something you could look at, is the infrastructure available, concurrency?
So like just about all the zoning changes that you all did today, when you look at our staff report, we say that this zoning may be considered compatible. It may be considered compatible by the matrix. However, the whole comp plan has to be taken into consideration, whether it's compatible or not compatible.
Right.
So along those lines, yeah.
Okay. Let's see, final question. Yeah. Next to last question. In the coastal management element, the coastal development and redevelopment section, the word should is used instead of the word shall, and I don't understand that. Basically, if you say should, it says, I'll do it if I want to, and I won't if I don't have to. And if I were a manager, I would say, then why did you put that in there if you're not going to commit to it? And there were a bunch of paragraphs that had the word should. Could you explain why we're using should?
Your point is well taken. Using should is not as definitive as using the word shall. One thing that we are looking for is, if we were to have shalls for all these policies and then had to implement them all right away, we would be in violation of our comp plan, because there's 13 policies in here, and we're going to have to sort of take steps to get to each of these things. So by using should, I think number one, that gives us a chance to figure out what the direction of the boards are going to be. What do they see as the priorities? Is it getting new development standards? Is it changing the code to allow more flexibility for development? Where do they want to focus? And then eat this elephant one bite at a time. There's so much stuff in here, and some of it we actually do already. So, just because it says should doesn't mean we're not doing it. And I'll use an example of educating the public, and of, we have some overlay districts, such as we talked about today, where we have increased stormwater requirements on North Merritt Island. We have the septic overlay, where you have to have increased treatment. We have limited densities in South Melbourne Beach. So I certainly understand your point. We feel like that was sort of the best path for us to take at this time. Tad?
I think that we deliberated on should and shall for quite some time with staff, and our feelings was since we were introducing a new element basically for the board, that should would be a little bit more palatable with some of the things that we were recommending. But there certainly is the opportunity for shall when we get into the second step of this. which is when we start drafting the codes.
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of, in my mind, the comp plan is that 30,000 foot level document that guides, you know, what we do and how codes are written and that. And then once we get into the land development codes and the engineering practices, that's when you're going to see the shalls. The other thing is, as we mentioned, while this was a 2015 statute requirement that went into effect for the next round of years to contain this perils of flood, I don't really think that that a lot of data started pouring in into the last year or so, and we have to do another year in 2023. So we're going to be doing this one, and then we're going to be going into the next one, and I think that after 2023, we're going to see a lot more design information, a lot more information on perils of flood. We're going to see where we are with the some of the indexes that we've adopted or we're proposing to adopt, and we're going to be adjusting accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Let's add should, shall, and may.
And final question was, I noticed the coastal high hazard map was deleted. Why was that?
That was deleted because as we have been moving forward with resilience and increased GIS data, just general technology, that we were in this basin when it was modeled by whoever models it. I know the EOC is involved with that. And then they moved us into another basin, and then they do modeling, and they realize, oh, well, we're going to use this different tidal gauge. You know, when they do all this modeling, they have, I can't, it's way above my head. But so what happens is you get new best available data. So during this process, our coastal high hazard area changed 3 times. Based on, you know, the Regional Planning Council would run stuff, and then the EOC would take that data and say, oh, well, you know what, actually in this area, we have this additional information, they'd run it again. So if we have a static map in there, it could become outdated. So instead, we have GIS layers that if anyone needed to know where the coastal high hazard area is, then we would provide them with that information. Best available data, we don't have to go back to the comp plan and change it.
And that is an interactive map, is what I'm.
Yeah, we do have GIS layers. We have them internally. We haven't served them up. I mean, the reports are available on the Regional Planning Council's website, where they do an analysis, and they have maps that are very high level, and they talk about how many acres are vulnerable to this risk or that risk, you know, based on transportation or land use. You know, once we kind of get everything, you know, get our policies in place, and I think this is something that, you know, perhaps could be served up to the public. We just didn't want to throw out, you know, this kind of interactive map without putting it all in context, right? And what does this mean, and why are we using it? It's, you know, meant for planning and funding.
Is that, and that map would be updated periodically?
Yes, the Regional Planning Council is constantly updating things. Right now, DEP is making a move to coordinate all the different curves for the different communities, so that, you know, we're not using a curve that predicts catastrophe in 2017 and someone else is, or 2070, and someone else is using a curve that says, you know, there'll be 2 inches of sea rise in 2100. So I think they're taking the lead on that, to both coordinate what curves we're using, and then also taking data. And, you know, we have Brevard County, they've done Volusia, they've done a lot of, and I think Satellite Beach has done one, and look at how taking away the political boundaries and running big models, big regional models, and it becomes more accurate.
Okay.
It's pretty cool stuff.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I appreciate your indulgence.
Thank you, Mr. Ron. Any other questions for Ms. Darcy?
Good job.
I have a question. Did anyone do a budget analysis on all these requirements that you're putting in?
Not a budget analysis, but we're aware that some of these items on here could cost a lot of money. Say if you wanted to, you know, increase standards for road development for public works, and, you know, we can't say, well, I guess we could, but we wouldn't get very far. You now have to raise all your roads 3 feet above, the base flood elevation. Obviously, that's not something that's reasonable. One good thing about this vulnerability analysis, and the governor has allotted a lot of money for resilience projects. So you can take the information, say if I'm building a lift station, and I'm looking at the area, and I think, well, it's down by the lagoon, maybe I need to raise it an extra couple feet. That's something you can apply for a grant for to help you with those additional costs. This covers such a massive swath of things. There's really no one analysis. I think this is going to be a situation where, for county government, if we do have a project, we can do an analysis to make sure that we're spending the taxpayers' money wisely. What's the project? How much does it cost? How long should it last for? And what are the risks? And you can make some informed decisions on how you want to spend your money, and can you get extra money from the state to help you? Things like educating the public, we already do that now. We help them with, we want to inform them as to things they could do in their own yard, rain gardens, stormwater swales. We do that now. So depends on what you want to do in here, what the cost would be. So.
What you want to do.
Yeah. Or
The, line number 3, the nature-based design standards that you were proposing here. You just mentioned and things like that. There's a chart in the document on page 1121 that had 3 areas. It said the built environment, and then it had something in the middle, I can't remember, and then on the right it was this nature way. Why isn't the built environment part of this? It just seems that you're looking at it from a natural way rather than all that we're doing.
I think it's only one part of the discussion. In this particular policy you're talking about, like right now Stetson is doing a study. They just finished for Volusia County, and now they're doing some modeling out towards the west part of the county by the St. Johns River, and they're looking at where are some good areas to preserve specifically for stormwater mitigation, and they're looking at that regionally, and then you say, okay, well, we know this area, maybe there's repetitive loss properties, and they're, identified in this area. It's like, well, maybe we, buy out some repetitive loss properties and turn it into some sort of a stormwater system that can incorporate wetlands and, other nature-based solutions. There's, like I said, it's a huge topic, and so the nature-based is just one part of it. Now, built environment, you could be looking at, building, maybe we allow stilts, maybe we reduce the need for fill, maybe we have additional construction standards that we impose, floodproofing. So it's just all kind of.
Yeah, it wasn't in there, that's why I was raising the question, because it looked like you were focusing on one particular direction without taking the built environment into account. And I guess my follow-up to that was, were there any design architects involved in preparing any of this?
We had, so the Regional Planning Council had Randall Parkinson, he's an engineer, coastal engineer. They had Sea Grant there, they had an attorney. We had a lot of public input. We had 2 public meetings. We had a survey online. We took all sorts of input. We did encourage the development community to be involved because this is something that could potentially affect them, right? What do they think? What do they want to see? I could not tell you if there was any actual architects. I know we did have some like home builders and engineers, local engineers that attended the public meetings.
I would have thought that they would have been more forthcoming to come up with solutions to some of these issues that we're facing, and that's what architects do.
Yeah.
They find
Well, I think
solutions.
this allows them, when it talks about creating new design standards, I think that opens the door that when we go to the land development regulations, that's where you start, hey, we're talking about changing the building codes. Well, I can guarantee you, we're gonna get a lot of participation, and that's when the professionals will come out and get into the weeds of it and the details. This is really high-level stuff, and, if the built environment is something, a direction that the boards would like to see us go, that's, where we'll go.
Well, I commend you for putting together such a thick document. It reminded
Wow.
me of a Pelosi funding request, but it's a lot in there, you're right.
This is the
There's a lot
meat of
stuff.
it. Planning and development gets credit for the rest of the, 6 or 7 inches of. Yeah, we had to take out a small forest, but.
Thank you.
Any other questions, board?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to commend staff. I did read it. It was very comprehensive. I thought you guys did a very good job. You may not know, I'm a first responder with Florida Task Force 1, and I responded to Hurricane Florence in South Carolina. One of the issues for your GIS, and we brought it to their attention, is you need to have the same vertical datum. One of the issues, we had lots of issues out there, particularly for your coastal flooding zones. Make sure that your surveying datum is the same as you're going to use for your GIS, and the same for the markers. We had NGDS storm river gauges that were 5 feet apart from each other, 5 feet vertical distance, and they're 1.5 miles apart. And that was because they were using different vertical datums. So thank you. I can see where your interactive maps would be difficult, particularly if one section is using NGVD 1929, another one's 1984. So make sure that when you do get back into the weeds from this International Space Station observatory that we're looking at your document, make sure you do get it into the same datums, vertical datums, and put EOC on the map with evacuation routes. Thank you. Good job.
Anybody from the audience?
Good. Anybody from the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Do you have a copy of this?
I am asking Catherine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something that stood out to me, just like a sore thumb.
Good afternoon or evening, members of the Planning and Zoning Board. I know it's been a long afternoon, and my name is Mary Spar. And
We'll need your name and address, Miss Mary, for the record.
825 Clifton's Cove Court, Cocoa. Okay. I've been interested in this subject for a long time, and I support the effort to improve the policies and include peril of flood considerations. I do have some minor changes, and I hope that even at this late hour, you'll consider them. And they have something to do with the point that Ron Barcher brought up about should and shall. Kind of figured out some areas that we might be able to do right away. And I do appreciate staff's position on that. There is a lot of work to be done. But if you'll zero in on the policy, I'm taking these in the order that maybe you'll want to do something about. Policy 14.6. Okay, so it says the county shall develop mechanisms to evaluate and recommend new design and development standards for public and private infrastructure projects that consider future climate conditions. Okay, fine, that's reasonable. And the county shall amend land development regulations to reduce obstacles that hinder nature-based design standards and/or low-impact development. Now, I understand from Dr. Lisa Soto that the county has a tool to make this easy. This tool was supplied by a professor at the University of Florida. It is hindering developers and engineers from using low-impact development, which is the way of the future, because there are ordinances that really discourage this by excessive requirements. And I think the environmental community and the engineers could definitely benefit by the county shall amend the development regulations to reduce obstacles that hinder nature-based design and LID. So I hope you'll recommend that one. So the next one is the county shall adopt development and redevelopment performance standards designed to minimize or withstand permanent and/or temporary inundation from flooding, sea level rise, and storm surge. These standards may include increased freeboard elevations, the consideration of future tailwater elevations for stormwater infrastructure, and/or a multi-use temporary flood storage area. I'd like to point out that your stormwater management policies were adopted in 1993. They are 27 or 28 years old. They are inadequate, and I have heard developers, cite this problem. It falls on them then if some of these structures are not adequate to make up the difference. You really need to do something about your stormwater management regulations. It's about time after 27 or 28 years. So that's why I say you shall adopt some new ones. Now, I'm not telling you exactly what, but let's look at them. I mean, I've been saying this for quite a few years, and it's just like on the back burner. So the next one is policy 14.9. Titusville has done what is in 14.9. This is to encourage or require nature-based design standards and/or LID development design for development and redevelopment within areas vulnerable to current and future flooding impacts. And then they give the standards. It's not that hard. If Titusville can do it, and they did it in a timely manner. They just were motivated. And I suggest that, I'm not saying that you have to require these standards, but I'm saying you shall encourage or require. What Titusville does is they are encouraging this, and they have, if you use the LID, then the developers get some reward for this. Like, for example, less parking spaces, and they can do more with their developments, just common sense. Okay, now, since I'm doing these in order of possible offensiveness or inoffensiveness, if you go up to policy 14.3, I mean, this should be very easy because the Regional Planning Council has done the work. So, or a lot of it, let's put it that way. So you shall identify areas vulnerable to current and future flooding impacts which may benefit from nature-based design standards or LID. They've got all these maps, all these projections. It's not that hard. You all have your flood maps. You've done a lot of analysis, and Mr. Denninghoff has worked hard on this, especially for North Merritt Island. It would not be that hard to identify the vulnerable areas. And in fact, every time a hurricane hits, in my area, I know where the streets are that are going to get impacted. So the last one is policy 7.1, and believe me, I would certainly like it stronger than I'm recommending, but to me, this is a no-brainer. I don't know about you. But it says, Brevard County shall not increase residential density designations for properties located on the barrier island between the southern boundary of Melbourne Beach, sorry, that's not Bach, it's Beach, and the Sebastian Inlet, or properties located in the coastal high hazard area. Okay, so you're trying to not increase the density on the south barrier island. But to me, if a property is going to get inundated by a Cat 1 storm, would you think you should be increasing the density there? I say that's a little ridiculous. So I say you should say Brevard County shall not increase residential density for these vulnerable properties on the south beaches or properties located in the coastal high hazard area, which is what would be inundated by a Cat 1 storm. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else would like to speak for or against this item? Seeing that, I bring it back to the board.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the plan with the inclusion of the items brought to identify shall instead of should or consider.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion by John, a second by Liz. All those in favor say
Can we
aye.
have discussion on that before we vote? That's a pretty tall order that we're just
Okay.
gonna just kind of sweep
I'll hold the
through.
motion and we'll open for discussion.
I mean, if you're gonna talk about going through every property in the county now, as opposed to what's already been done in the South Beach, you're gonna impose density restrictions on every piece of property in the county, in the coastal high hazard area, that's a lot of properties. That's a pretty sweeping statement that was never in the comp plan before and isn't even proposed to be changed at this time. So I would be totally against that without a lot of future input by staff and research on that item, for one. Also, I think that staff put should there on purpose. Holding the county accountable to implement all these items by putting shall will do just that. It will put them on the hook to have to implement this with the ability that they have to keep up with what they have to do, never mind all these additional requirements we would force staff to have to do. I think that would be quite a burden on staff to have to come and develop all these new incentives and programs and requirements. I mean, this is policy. We're just establishing policy on things we would like to do. I know based on what they're doing here, they're going to come back and start looking at land development regulations that will actually start requiring these things or making an incentive base or whatever they're going to do. But that's where we need to start looking, is when these land development regulations come to this board, not putting this all in the comp plan and holding the county hostage to force them to do things that are just a good idea and are a good policy to have. So I would not support this motion at all.
And I agree with all the comments Bruce just made, and I do not support the motion either.
I need to back up. Do we have a second on that? I don't. Yes. So we do need to take a vote.
Could we modify it to ask, because we haven't had an opportunity, Mary, obviously, to review all this and even to have discussion with staff, and Bruce does make some good points. So perhaps we can make the recommendation that, you know, we looked at it, but the county commission obviously is going to have the final vote on the item and say that, you know, we'll defer to the commission. I mean, I just don't know that we've had enough time to look at it.
I think I still need to get a vote, though, because we had a,
Yeah, so if
To
if
include this.
Robert wants to amend his motion, or if he wants to stand
Well, I
on his
think it's-
motion.
I think it's fairly clear. They shall consider, they shall develop mechanisms, they shall adopt performance standards. So we're not changing comp plans here. We're encouraging exactly what Ron had said earlier on the use for shall and should. I think staff did a good job. I complimented them on that earlier. They also said that they did this evaluation between should and shall, as I'm not mistaken. And it's coming down to an either or. But the mechanisms themselves will be evaluated in the finals and the details of the comp plan. Here, what you're saying is the city of Titusville has already implemented this. Has there been adverse effects of it? No, I don't think so. So I stand with the motion.
Just for clarification, the city of Titusville did not put this in their comp plan. They passed a ordinance to add land, low-impact development allowances in their code, not in their comp plan. So that's why I just don't think it's appropriate in the comp plan. If the board directs staff to start looking at these items and coming up with language to address it, so be it. That's the board's prerogative. But I don't want to force the staff to have to do these things if that's not something the board wants to do. And not to mention, I don't think staff would have the capacity to mandate that they do everything in this language. So that's.
Mr. Chair.
You know, I've always been reluctant to have a situation where somebody from the audience comes into it and make an attachment to what have reviewed and analyzed, and now it all of a sudden gives you an indication that we've supported that. Well, we might support it, but the staff and everybody needs to take a look at this, Bruce. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
we got to be a little careful here.
Pages of information that we spent, days reviewing, and now here we go 5 minutes before we vote, and we get this. So that's a lot of information we had to digest, and to come in with additional information is just. I don't think we have the time to evaluate it.
I would hate to see us add this to it, because next week you're going to have, or the next meeting we have, everybody's going to be here with why don't you just add this to the zoning request? So, anyway.
Mr. Chairman, when I addressed the shall and should, I did hear comments from staff that this is something that they would like to see change, and we have a what's it, EAR? In 2023, that.
Yes, our next year.
And it's like, and because of the comments that I heard from staff, I think it's likely that we are going to see some of these shoulds change to shall in that next iteration.
right.
And I believe that these are good recommendations and a good starting point to say which ones should change to shall. But I'd like the staff to take a look at those, and I'm certain they will. And in the next couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see most of this language in there. So how are you going to address your motion?
Well, I'm pretty sure with a motion and a second, we have to take a vote, correct?
Right.
And that is,
Can I hear the motion again?
The motion was to to approve, and with the additions of the 7.1, 14.3, 14.6, 14.7, and 14.9 recommendations made, with the movement of eliminating should and putting shall on those elements.
And
And that's
li-
the,
I'm sorry.
and that would be the recommendation that we're putting forth to the commissioners, that they change that wording.
Only on those elements, correct, which we've reviewed.
And Liz, you still good with your second?
I'm conflicted because I haven't had a chance to talk to staff about how this
Would affect.
affects their ability to implement. And what Ron was saying earlier about their responses to, changing the shall as we go through the policies over time, so I'm erring towards pulling my second to wait. So I will pull my second.
So Liz wants to withdraw her second to the motion. Do we have a second for the motion? Okay, not seeing a second.
Mr. Chair?
Hold on
Yeah,
one
Mr.
second,
Chair, so
please.
the motion fails for lack of a second, so you can take another motion. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Ben.
Mr. Chair, I recommend approval as is.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Ben, a second by Bruce. Approval as is. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, well, before we adjourn to, we need to do officers.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to make nomination for Mark Wadsworth as chair.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Pete, a second by Bruce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to have Pete Filiberto be the vice chairman.
Second?
Okay, for vice chair, we have a motion by Bruce for Pete, a second by Liz. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
He's running for office. He's not going to be able to handle this in my front yard.
We have-
He wins, and he should.
We have one nay.
Motion approved.
Oh,
What was-
yeah.
what was
that
the-
one is-
what was the
that one-
reason?
That's on hold.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, so we're adjourned.
Safe travel, everyone.
No.
I'm going to work hard for you to.
You know what? That's good.
Councilman.
Yeah.
Get him
You
over
want
there.
more?
Yeah, you get him over there by
Oh,
the.
oh,
Opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.